Hi there, and welcome to another YouTube video. Thank you so much for joining me. If it's your first time, you're very welcome. If you've come back after enjoying other ones, thank you very much for returning. As always, if you have any comments or questions, please do drop them in the comment section below. I love to hear from you. I do try to reply to every single comment because I really, really appreciate you taking the time. This is a video all about my trip to the Hallerbos in Belgium a few weeks ago to the bluebell woodlands. It's somewhere I've been meaning to go to for about 10 years, and I finally got around to doing it this year. There's going to be a little introduction in a minute with me out in the woods that I recorded while I was out there. And then what I would do is return back to Lightroom and we will walk through a number of the images. When I say a number, I will see how many I can get through because I've found it very, very difficult to remove too many out. I mean, I did take about 800 during 4 hours, but you won't get all 800. But there are probably more than I would normally share with you. It's a mixture of straight images, ICM images, and what I've done is I've tried to show you what I've seen, maybe talk through some compositions, and then also show you and talk you through the different shutter speeds and different movements I've made to create the ICM images. I really hope you enjoy this, and I look forward to you joining me on another video soon. Thanks a lot.
Okay, so I thought I'd get just in front of the camera. I've just done a talky bit and I thought it was quite boring just looking at the location. So I'm out here in Hallerbos in Belgium, just south of Brussels. It's somewhere I've been wanting to come for like about 10 years now, and I finally managed to get it to work with being here for work. And I've been walking around the woodland here this morning for about, I got here at 8 o'clock and it's now nearly midday. I have walked about 12 kilometres. I'm quite tired. I'm sort of just about ready to finish, but I just thought I'd do a little video. Gosh, there's a bird of prey up there somewhere. I can just hear it. I don't know whether it will pick up on the sound or not. The birds have been singing all morning, the bluebells have been shining, so has the sun. I have been insanely lucky this morning. The weather has been awful recently, and also the bluebells are out really early this year. Last year it was sort of middle of May and it's only just middle of April now. Hallerbos is famous for its bluebells here in Belgium. It's about a 3.5 hour ride for me. I came down last night, yesterday, and so what I've been doing is exploring the woodland. I cannot help myself but make sharp, straight images as well as ICM. I've been working with anything between about 1/3 of a second, 1/4 of a second, right down to or up to 2 seconds, though I did start to find that around 2 seconds it all became a little bit soft in here, although I am always thinking about multiple exposures as well. So when I create a very soft image, if I take a sharp image, I think about combining. Now what you're going to see is I'm just going to have a go at photographing what's behind me here. I haven't done this yet, and I'm going to try some different sort of I'm going to do 1/4 of a second straight shots. I'm going to do about a second where I move the camera upwards and downwards. Very small movements. I'm on my 24-200 lens, and I'm sitting at, I'm not quite sure what it is actually at the moment. Yeah, and the other thing, I might just try some little movements left and right, a little bit of a shake. And so hopefully what you'll see at the end is a whole selection of images. What I'll do is make sure I note or let you know which sort of movements and which settings they were in there, so you can hopefully enjoy them. Thank you very much for joining me, and enjoy the photos.
So here we are back in Lightroom. I just wanted to show you these images first that I took to relate to the video that I just made. So as I mentioned before, I'm going to walk you through a whole load of images, but these were the first ones I took. So first things first, looking at the composition. I really like this composition, and it was really quite difficult in the woodlands not to find compositions, and there were so many different ones as well. But you will see throughout the discussion that I'm going to have with you on these images some different variation. I really like this one for the two really strong tree trunks at the front here. I like the light one, I like the dark one, and then there were two little sets of trees that kind of just sort of surrounded the main characters of my sort of image, and then in the background you had this lovely selection of trees a little bit further back in the composition. At this point when I'd made the video, the sky was just starting to darken, which helped knock back the highlights in it. But you'll see in some of the images that that I show you that the sky was a little bit tricky at times. So let's go and see what I did with the ICM. So this is the first one. Let me just move my picture down here. So you can see at the top right hand corner, to start with, you can see some of the details about how I was setting it up, in case you're interested. So this one is 1/4 of a second. This is a very traditional ICM image for me in the woodlands. I basically hold the camera and move it very slightly. We're talking about 1 centimetre, probably not an awful lot more. Quite a short, sharp movement, which I aim to keep as much detail as possible, but just add a little bit of movement into the leaves. So I don't want to change the tree trunks too much, but you do soften them a little bit with the ICM movement. I quite like this because it holds a little bit of detail. It's really captured the light and the bluebells. This one here is at 1 second. And for this one, what I've done is just jiggled the camera very, very slightly when I've held it. Now, 1 second of jiggling is actually quite a long time to try and keep these tree trunks straight, but I quite liked what the result has come. It feels a lot more pastel-y, it's a lot softer, it's a lot gentler image. I don't always like it, as you'll see on the next one, when images go soft, but I do quite like this one. It's quite different to the last one, and the difference is actually what makes me hard pushed to actually choose which one I like best, because they both give different feelings. This one here is exactly the same shutter speed. This is another 1 second one, but this time what I've done is I've taken the camera up and down a couple of times within the shutter speed. And so you can see that I've dragged the green up and down the tree trunk quite a lot. This one is very soft, and to my mind, it feels a little bit too soft for me. I've lost the sort of power of the blue in here, and also I've kind of got a lot of sort of mix, and it's very soft image overall. So I'm not super happy with this, but I wanted to show you what the difference in movements could result in. And this one here is what I would call sort of a barcode image. And it's what I used to do when I first started ICM, was trying to get all the lines really, really straight. This one here, I've started moving the camera, then I've pressed the shutter, and then I've carried on moving the camera. 1/5 of a second, so quite a fast shutter speed for ICM. But when I want to create really straight lines, I do actually make my shutter speed shorter so that I have less time for the hand to wiggle at all. And it's just a very sort of direct upwards movement. If you're struggling in the woodlands, a bit like I am here, you sometimes, if you do this, you actually scoop the camera round, and what you'll end up doing is bowing the trees very slightly. If you want to keep dead straight trees, what you actually need to do is make sure the camera actually moves in exactly a straight line with the trees. And to do that, you actually need to move it upwards and downwards. The problem with that is that you're becoming very static in your body and you lose that freedom. So it's kind of a payoff one to the other. So, but next time you're out, do have a play. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk you through some of these other images that I found. There'll be a few videos interspersed here and there, I think. Then you might have just seen them earlier as well. So this one was when I first walked into the woodland. No excuses. It was just beautiful, absolutely stunning. I was there all on my own at 8 o'clock in the morning. The sun was just coming out. It was dappled light, very soft light. It was just very, very beautiful. The birds were singing. It was really, really pretty. This is just turning in the opposite direction. You can see how soft the sun was. It was really lovely. The greens were coming out, the dappleness on the floor. This one, there hasn't got loads and loads of bluebells, but I just felt this sort of really accentuated spring for me. What I did like about this one was the sort of solid tree trunk, and then this little tree here with the green, and then how it came over the right-hand side. So this was the resulting ICM image at a 1/2 second. It's a little bit soft. I've moved the camera a little bit jiggled, I think, because it almost looks as I've moved the camera slightly left right when you look at the lines up here, which is not something I normally do, but I quite like it. It's very soft. It sort of it shows you the feeling of the light and the feeling of the softness of the location. You are going to see a couple of times within this video, times when the sun's disappeared and there is no sun, there is no dappled light. And I think it's really interesting to look at those images as well, because I do say you can photograph anything in ICM in any light, whether it's raining, whether it's snowy, whether it's foggy, it doesn't matter. Um, if you go into woodlands in sunlight and try and do ICM, it can actually be really hard work because the contrasts are quite hard to work with. Here, beautiful flat but soft light here, and you can see when the result here comes out, there is no real sort of light points within here. It's a very gentle image. Got a little bit of light coming through from up in the sky. You can see the movement that I've made. Struggle to keep it straight lines, even when I do mean to make straight lines. I quite like this, the fact that I've still got the hint of the branches here going on. So that was quite a nice result for me. No bluebells in this one, but just to show you again the location that I was working in, it was really, really pretty. I made sure, if you do ever put this on your wish list to do, I was there on a weekday morning and I virtually had the place to myself for a couple of hours. It was really, really beautiful. I believe if you go on weekends, when it's the height of the peak season, it can be insanely busy, as can any of these beautiful natural locations that people want to go and see. This was my next stop, and I stopped an awful lot in 4 hours. I took around 800 pictures. You're not going to see all 800, but you are going to see quite a few in this little section. What grabbed me here was this lovely single beech tree in the middle of all these other sort of solid tree trunks. Wasn't over keen on the light coming through the trees here, so I just sort of put that in my head and thought, yeah, you must think about making sure that you don't got too much highlights or overexposure. Loved the carpet of bluebells that ran through here. So I knew that I wanted to have a little bit of a play with this one. This one here, for those that are watching the timings, this is actually a 13 second, 13 second shutter speed. And what I did was I had this on the tripod. And so what I did was I set it on the tripod, and every couple of seconds I just moved the camera to the right and then back again, to the left, back again, up, back again, down, back again. And I just held it for maybe 2 or 3 seconds each time in one place. So it's almost like stamping when you go through the process. I love what it's done to the bluebells at the bottom. Not overly keen what it's done to the sky at the top. You can still see that lovely beech tree in the middle, but maybe this is one to play with a little bit more. Now, going for the barcode effect, I think this has really accentuated the light in the sky, which I'm not overly keen about. And I've also lost the beech tree in the middle, which is really interesting. So that lovely beech tree, which is the reason why I made the photo, when I did this movement, I've actually lost it. I quite like the effect of the blue. I love the sort of hint of the light going along the bottom of the trees. Overall, it's still quite a nice image, but you can see that by doing different movements, you end up with quite different results in the ICM image. This was another area of the wood which I found was quite messy. It felt a little bit older, a little bit less kept, a little bit less untamed. And I quite liked it for that, the fact that there was sort of little sprouting branches here and there. Love the way that the light was coming through on the ferns here. And I just love this little sort of circular set of trees here. So this one is a 1.3 second exposure. And during this time, what I did was I think I sort of just shook it upwards and downwards very slightly, the camera. So what you're seeing is actually sort of a replication of the same branches going up and down. I really like this. I love what it's done with the light, the way the light has fallen on the wet bluebells on the bottom. With that movement, there's no sort of direct stripes in the sky, which is quite nice. So I quite liked this result here. This one here is actually a multiple exposure of the ICM that you just saw and the original one. I just wanted to have a little play and see what happened if you put the two together. I quite like it. It's another different version of the same image. Again, another sort of more messy woodland setting. I just love the way that the light pooled in the bottom here. It was like having a little sort of pool of bluebell sort of water at the bottom. Otherwise, nothing really, no real strong sort of elements in this, but it was really the light that drew me to make this image here. And I just love this green background and not too much sky to affect the image. And this is the image I made. This was actually, I'm looking at 2.5 seconds. So what I did was I actually moved the camera upwards and down a couple of times on this one. I quite like this. It's quite soft, it's quite gentle. Again, what it's done is it's kept this pool of light here. And I've quite enjoyed making that one. Again, moving on, really, really strong tree trunks. I love the sort of angularity of a lot of these locations that I photographed in. This was a straight line movement, but this one, rather than starting the camera before I pressed the shutter, I actually started, pressed the shutter, and then moved quite quickly upwards to get the smoothness of this. Again, back to a quarter of a second. When I'm trying to do these sort of straighter lines, these smoother lines, I do tend to go back to a faster shutter speed, because personally, I find that if I move the camera faster, I can keep the lines sharper. Same location, but 1.6 seconds. This time you've got a very much softer effect, and you can see the little, I quite like this because it kind of looks as though the trees are just very slightly rustling in this image. Another one, I love this one for the darkness of it and the contrast between the light. No sky in this one at all, which is really, really lovely. Some although there's no sky and no entry, you've got some super directional light coming in on the right-hand side of the tree. So I loved how it was shaping the tree trunks. And so in the ICM, what you can do is you can see this this light coming in from the left, from the right, and shaping the tree trunks. This one's a little bit soft for me. It's only a fifth of a second, half a second, but it just seems to have a little bit. It's a little bit too soft. I think this one was a bit of a joggle movement rather than a definite upwards movement. There's a few images here. Again, I loved how strong these tree trunks were. This sort of point of triangle point in the middle here. I quite like this set of three. This one is 1.3 seconds, so a little bit longer. Just moving the camera upwards and downwards a little bit, just a gentle shake. I love this slightly longer shutter speed, gives a very soft feeling to the bluebells. I think that works really nicely for me. Same shutter speed, but this time I must have made a slightly bigger movement. To be honest, I can't remember all the movements exactly how I did them. So I have to try and figure out what I see down here in the light trails and how soft it is. This one here, I think I've probably dropped the, what I have done here, I've just noticed with the depth of field, is that I have obviously put the filter on as well, which has allowed me to actually drop the depth of field as well a little bit. So some of the images earlier were right up at like F23, F32 even, before I put my filter on. Putting the filter on has allowed me to go down to F9 and be able to soften it out a little bit because of the depth of field. Another image, love the setting, a lot of sky though. Wasn't too bad on this one. This one's 2.2 seconds. I think on this one, I've actually moved it very slightly left and right. Not very much, but a little bit, or possibly left and right and then up and down within 2 seconds. So it's a little bit softer, this one. Not over keen on this. It's a little bit flat with the light. I don't think I've done an awful lot post-processing on this one. Loved how the light came in on this one. Dappled floor. 1.3 seconds, a little just upwards downwards movement on this one. Just really, really like the composition with these light strong tree trunks and then these little ones in the middle. Not so keen on this one. This is 0.6 of a second, and so I must have had to move quite fast because that's a fast shutter speed for me with ICM. I think I probably moved it quite a long movement within a short space of time. So what I've done is dragged everything upwards. It's not barcodey and it's not soft. I've kind of lost the feeling of what the leaves were, so that I'm not sort of over keen on that one. What I did like though was the way that the not necessarily on this one, but what I did like was the way that the shadows were falling down across. This one's a third of a second, and what I've done is I've swept upwards here on a really long movement, so a long fast movement upwards, And so you can see it's kind of just dragged everything. I've completely lost the tree trunks on this one. It's become all about the blue. Interestingly, the blue now seems to be hiding halfway up the tree trunks rather than on the floor. Not keen on this one at all. But again, to show you, this is a longer movement and quite a fast movement within the times shutter speed. I quite like looking for the odd path within the woodlands. There weren't many, and you weren't allowed to go off the paths here into these paths. So it was quite nice shooting into the woodlands, just with a different sort of function rather than just flat woodlands in front of me. So now I've sort of composition wise, I've placed the path to take your eye into the image. Quite a lot of sky across the top. Not overly keen on that, but I do love the light that's coming through on the bottom here, and I love the shadows that you're getting from the trees. Lots and lots of green, lots and lots of blue. Playing again with a very smooth shutter speed of 1/4 of a second, just moving the camera very smoothly upwards. This was actually one of the paths that we were working on, and I don't know whether this was the one that you see if you Google Hallerbos and look on Instagram. There is one path that comes up every image. I don't think I actually found it the whole time I was out there. But anyway, this was a lovely path that was heading down the hill, and I just really, really loved the composition of this. So I just created this one, which was 0.6 of a second, a little bit of a jiggle here. I quite liked the result of that one. This one, I love the shadows coming out of the tree trunks. The sun was now a little bit higher in the sky, a little bit later in the morning. The sun was a little bit stronger, it wasn't quite so soft, but I really love these sort of dynamic lines that were appearing with the dynamic straight lines of the tree trunks. This was zooming in on the same area and playing with the shutter speed and the movements. Again, looking at the lovely carpet of bluebells. This one I quite liked because I now found that it kind of almost, I had a little bit of a foreground and a background to this one because there was a little hill coming down across it. So I quite liked, I also liked the fact that the hill in the front was in shadow and then the next stage was a little bit in light. So it actually gave you a reason to carry on through the image. I really like this one, 1.3 seconds. What I ended up was doing, I found I actually quite liked a little bit of a longer shutter speed when I was doing these images. I quite like how soft this is. Again, another path just going up through the woodlands. That's actually a video that I'm not going to show you right this second. And so, no, that one's not. This one, love the sun, love the blue, love the green. This was the end result. I'm not going to keep saying the same thing over and over again, but I found it very, very difficult to choose which images to share with you. Hence, you're seeing so many. This is interesting because this is the same. Is this the same tree? No, this one was in flat light. So this was the sun went in from this one, and I just wanted to show you the difference between the sun when the sun comes out and when it goes in. So flat light here. Still beautiful, absolutely beautiful. The resulting ICM is quite flat as well. I haven't done an awful lot to it. Love it because there's no real bright highlights. I've managed to keep the sky pretty well controlled. However, then the sun came out. So you can see the difference here between this one and this one. It's just a hint because there wasn't sun over the whole thing, but it was now giving a little bit more shape to some of the trees. And so now what we've got is these trees are really, really strong contrast points now. The whites on these trees is just insane. And the depth that you get from the front to the back of the image is far stronger than this one. Okay, so when I say you can photograph in dull days, rain, whatever, you can, but you are actually going to get very, very slightly different results. Another lovely location and playing with this one. I really love the softness of this one. 0.6 of a second, not a fast shutter speed, so just a very small movement to try and keep hold of as much detail as possible. Another darker woodland. That was the original image. This one here, I was actually playing with the green in the front, another dimension and something else to look at rather than just sort of being able to see straight across all the bluebells. Then I got down on my hands and knees because I actually, although I was in the woodlands, I say to people when I teach in woodlands, remember woodlands are not just about the trees. There is a ground to it, there is a sky, there is a tree canopy. And so what I did was that then I got down and I had a little play with the bluebells here. This is what I actually saw. And partly the reason I played here was because of these lovely little white flowers amongst the bluebells. So you've got the white elements as well as the blue elements. Love the ferns. What I did was actually I did a little round movement, very quick in a quarter of a second, just to actually sort of accentuate the feeling of the. I was almost doing a bluebell bell, so the bells sort of fell over. So I just did a sort of a movement with the camera to accentuate the bells themselves. Then I had a little play with the bluebells and the woodland behind it. So I now got a little bit lower with my compositions rather than shooting out across the woods. I now shot down and used the woods as a sort of a background rather than what it was just about. This was the F11, and I really, really liked sort of this composition here. This one here, I dropped the depth of field to f6.3. So now all I wanted to do was get the bluebells in focus. I really like this one. I think I could play with this one a little bit more, but I love how the dark green is now just almost like a backdrop rather than, and a hint of where it was rather than too important in the image. Then I played even more. I had my 24 to 200 lens with my Nikon Z camera, and it's a Z lens. It only goes down to 6.3, so I enjoyed playing with this. But by zooming in from a distance, I really enjoyed getting the sort of the balance here and doing a little bit of sort of slightly closer up work. This one here, I just noticed the sun coming from the backlighting. I'm not really a massive flower photographer, so I'm not a natural at doing this kind of thing. I wanted to get the purple in the background here to give it a little bit of balance between the two. I loved how the light came through here with the I never know how to say it, with the boko. I never know how to say that word. But I absolutely love how the light has captured these little twists and the depth of field that I've chosen to work with on this one. Interestingly, what I do sometimes is if I'm thinking of putting two together, this is exactly the same image, but what I've just done is thrown the image completely out of focus. And something like this makes a great texture later on. So it's exactly the same image, but I've just completely thrown it out of focus. And then you just get sort of the feeling of color and shape rather than any detail. This was another one just as I walked through the woods. This one I made literally as I was just leaving the woods. The light had dropped down now quite a lot. The sun had gone completely. This one actually has quite a green feel to it. I'm not quite sure why. Quarter of a second, just very small movements. I love the composition of this one. I love the fact that it went down into a gully and came up on the other side. But I think maybe it was just the light had dropped down quite a lot, so it just gave it a different feel. Or maybe I just need to have a little play with sort of bringing the blues a little bit more. So it's got a different feel with this one. And lastly, you are going to see a couple of videos in a minute of me leaving the woodlands. And I put this one in here because as I left the woodlands and the hail came down, the garlic all around me, honestly, if I could do you smell vision, I would, because the garlic was insane. As all the hail pelted the garlic, it just went boom, and the smell as I left the woodland will stay with me forever. And you will see that in a couple of videos in a minute, just to show you that it doesn't shine, the sun doesn't shine all the time when I'm out and about. Anyway, I really hope you've enjoyed that. I feel like I've whizzed through. I feel like I've said it's beautiful, it's green, it's blue, it's bluebells an awful lot of times. So hopefully you didn't leave me midway and you're sticking with me. Again, just a reminder, if you have any questions, do let me know. And I'd love to know which sort of images you like. Did you have a favorite shutter speed that I used? Were you surprised by any of the shutter speeds I used? Anyway, enjoy the rest of the last couple of little videos that I've got for you at the end here. And many thanks for watching. So the weather didn't last and I've got caught in a hailstorm and I'm going back to the car now.